Hey, you guys, what's up? Welcome to According to Who. I am your host, Dee, and I am joined by our wonderful guest today, Mr. Chad Black. My sister would love your name.
I love your sister.
She would love your name. How are you doing this afternoon?
No complaints. Life could be better and could be worse. I'm just in the middle of trying to stay afloat.
Oh, I like that. So I was looking over your Instagram, and I know that you're an entrepreneur, but you had some interesting ways of describing what it is that you do. And I just kind of wanted to just throw them out there just to let people know how savvy you are with these words. He's a content curator, a vibe curator, a thought stimulator, a visionary, and a content producer. Um, Give me a little bit more about that vibe curator. What made you get that title? Where'd you get that title from?
I have a. It comes from, and I never said this before. It comes from kind of being an instigator, right? Being an instigator to create some type of survivor uproar, and I know that I have a power to be able to do that in a room full of people. So when you take the bad out of it, you create vibes, you create energy. So I really have a really good talent at making people feel comfortable and changing a mood to what I kind of want it to be. So it takes a certain type of person to be able to have that. I know that there is pros and cons to it, but when I say vibe curator or stimulator, it's really to create good, comfortable, nice vibes. I try to make myself irreplaceable. When you think of me, you think of somebody you want to be around a lot, and it's just a vibe. You know what I'm saying? I know everybody say that, but it's just like it's irreplaceable. So
Cool.
the negative made it a positive.
I like it. So you have the ability to control a room. That's what I would call that. Because if your energy is completely off, the room is going to pick up on that energy because of the light that you already have.
Yeah, control sounds real narcissistic. So I'm going to say,
you call it what you want to. That's what it is.
I'm going to say I'm a vibe starter. Like I'm a person who will start it and just sit back and just allow everybody to, create conversation and things like that. I'm a thought provoker, basically. I like to provoke thought, things you never thought about, or put things into perspective that you might not have even reason with.
I like that. All right. So I'm big on setting intentions in the very beginning. So what do you want people to walk away from this interview knowing about you and what you actually represent?
That arrogance isn't arrogance when you know who you are and you know your value, right? So I just want people to know their value. So if you know your value and you do 15,000 things and somebody say what you do, you're okay. It's okay to say all 15,000 things that you do. You know what I mean? Only people with simple minds get jealous and upset or make you feel small in a room when they don't feel as though that they're doing much. So just knowing that from me, I'm just a boomerang. You bounce it. I'm just a wall that you bounce your ideas off. You bounce your vibe off. I like to help others. So if I could help people learn that when you know your value, you're one of the most dangerous people in the world, and you will not accept anything less than what you deserve because you understand and you respect your value. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
But those are your intentions.
Yeah, for sure.
For this interview, that's what you're projecting.
Sure.
I like it. I'm really big on knowing and understanding your value. I think it's probably one of the most I don't even know if that's if I want to say it that way. It's one of those things within our community that is not taught because we're taught so much to be humble, which there's pros and cons to that as well, but we aren't taught how to articulate what it is that we actually do and contribute to whatever space that we're in. But once you do move to a place where you understand clearly what it is that you have to offer, you get more out of life.
For sure.
In my opinion. All right. So let's start from the beginning. You have a book. Tell us a little bit about your book, Being Alone.
So I have two books, but my first book is the book that you're referring to. It's called The Power of Being Alone. It's just a reflection of understanding that the thought of it's a misconception of being alone and being lonely. I think it's two different things. I think you can be in a relationship and be alone. You got a husband, you got a wife, they go to work, you home washing the dishes. It's about preparing your mind to be alone and to think about the things you don't normally think about, to find peace, to become a better you. There's a lot of things that we don't bring to our own realization based upon the fact that we don't think about it, or we don't give ourselves time to reflect and think about what's the situation. In my book, I have an excerpt in the book basically titled "Question Everything." You know, question all of the things that you don't think about. Are you in love? Are you satisfied? Are you in a relationship with the person that you're in a relationship with? Is it a relationship? Is it a business decision? Are y'all just roommates? Do you love the person that you're with? What values do you add? What do you do? Why do you need this person? Do you need them or do you want them? And it's like 150 questions that you could just ask yourself. And you're like, damn, who are you without sex? Who are you with sex? Who are you without people around you? You know, all of these things we need to think about, because these in turn cause us to be better people. Like, we live life, and it's like what they say is, what you don't know doesn't hurt you. And at this time in my life, as me unlearning all of the things that my parents taught me, I feel like that is a lie. What you don't know is true, but you need to know what you don't know, because if you don't know it, you don't know how it affects you, and you don't recognize it. So I just think that the power of being alone is a thing that we all need. Before you get into a relationship, before you have kids, before you jump into a job, before you go out and have fun with your friends, you need a couple of minutes to yourself to just reflect and think about things. I used to think as a kid that just being up for next, whatever, let's go, we out, whatever, call my phone, we going. And I thought that that was a real healthy way to live, but it's not. You make a lot of mistakes when you don't think. So I try to let everything that comes to my mind, and I try to talk about that in the book, that like, I believe that your head, which is where your brain is, your brain's house is in your head. I believe your brain sticks out farther than your heart. I think you make the best decisions when you think before you let it get to your heart. So if you become a better thinker, you'll be a better person and you make better decisions. And that's just a small excerpt of the book.
The reason I was so interested in talking to you is because those are some of the same thought processes that I have. If you go look at I would say the charter for my podcast, according to who, it's based off of what you're talking about specifically, questioning everything. Because I tell this story all the time, so I know my listeners are used to hearing it. I had this lady that I call her my guardian angel, but she came into my life when I was around maybe like 23, and she started with religion. And she would just probe me every day. Are you ready to know? Are you ready to know? Are you ready to know? And she would just come up and just ask me questions. And I just always rejected it. I didn't want the answer to anything that she was saying. And then one day I was just curious. And I went over to there and she gave me some information. And once you start questioning things that are like fundamental to who you are and what you believe, it makes you question everything.
For sure.
And when you start questioning everything, it's an extremely scary space. So that's a question that I have for you. Your advice is spot on. You need to be alone and you do need to start asking those questions. But do you offer anything in there for people when you've questioned everything and you realize that you are not in alignment with anything that you believe? Where do you go? Where do you start?
Yes, actually I do. You kind of lined me up. It's like you read my book, but there's an excerpt in there called Recognize the Problem, right? I think the easiest thing to do because it's hard to recognize a problem, because some of us have problems and we don't recognize them. But when you get to the point of recognizing your problem, it's a life hack. It's like a cheat code on a PlayStation game, because now the next thing to do is to create a solution. I say this analogy all the time, is like, the blessing is if your car is broke down or your car is not working to the way that you want it to work, and you get a diagnostic and they tell you that it's the brakes, that's the best news you can hear, because now you can take it to a Meineke or a place that fix brakes, because the solution is to fix the brakes. So for somebody who questions everything and then all of a sudden they become 9/11 and it becomes ground zero, now you're doing what the military does. You're doing with you're dealing with what fraternities and sororities do. They break you down and then build you back up, right? So when ground zero comes and you flatline, I mean, not traditional, like real flatline, but when it's ground zero and you realize that nothing makes sense, you realize that you were taught off of other people's fears or other people's shortcomings or other people's uh, intentions, you start to be at ground zero and you can build yourself up the way that you want to be. And that's the best way to, you know how sometimes you know something but don't know how you know it, or you don't know the reason behind it, you just know it. And it's like
intuition. That's what
it's
that's
all it's also it's also like cheating off a test. Like somebody tell you the answer, but you know the answer, you like, all right, I know the answer. But how does that help you knowing the answer, but not knowing how to get to the answer? Because when this opportunity comes up again, you got to show your work, and you can't show your work because you've been cheating all this time. So to be able to recognize a problem and be able to find a solution is the cheat code for us to build ourselves up after we realize that we question everything and we don't know nothing. So yeah, that's in there too.